Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to our Hadassah Livona chapter Tanakh learning class. We're learning today Sefer Shmuel Aleph, chapter 30, and we're going to get started in a moment. We've said our prayers for the Chayalim and our Refuah Shalemas, and we hope and pray that everyone who's watching is safe and healthy. We had a one day little fireworks from Iran and the Houthis. I think they're running out of ammunition.
Halavai, halavai.
But we hope and pray that Hashem will destroy our enemies and keep us safe. So, before we get started with our lesson, I'm going to ask Xenia Cohen to make a Hadassah announcement. Xenia?
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to tell you that if you have not made your reservations yet, on Tuesday, June 23rd at 7 o'clock at Yad Labanim, we are going to have a special summertime concert from Gypsies and Klezmer to Chrysler. A special performance by Yochanan de Graaf on piano and his nephew Ariel de Graaf on violin. This concert is presented in memory of Sandy Cohn, who was our other wonderful musician in the past, and we are going to be doing a special tribute in her memory that evening. And you must make reservations, and you must call. I'm going to give you the phone number. It is Eileen Goldstein, and her phone number is 053-921-3309. Again, 053-921-3309. And all proceeds of this concert are going to be going for life-changing equipment for wounded soldiers and others at Gandil Rehabilitation Center at Hadassah Hospital, Mount Scopus. And literally every shekel that comes in will go for that, because this concert is being generously underwritten by Avis and David Weitzman, who are celebrating their 90th birthdays, and also by myself and Jeffrey, who are not celebrating our 90th birthday. Anyway,
but are working their way towards it.
Right. God willing. Yes.
Please, anyway. God.
Okay, so please, this is a really, really important fundraiser because of we had to cancel this last year because of the Iran war, and timing is everything. But the hospital really, really needs our funds, and it's going to be an amazing concert. So please join us. Thank you. That's my spiel.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope everyone will join us at the concert. It's every year that we've had that concert. It's been wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So professional, so beautiful. So please join us.
Thank you.
So ladies, last week we discussed a very interesting topic in chapter 29 of Sefer Shmuel Aleph, chapter 29. It was about, can anyone tell me what
Saul went to this witch. I don't know what else you could
No, that was 2 chapters ago.
Oh, right. Sorry. Oh gosh. Well, maybe David was sort of in disguise, saying he would help the king, but he really wasn't going to help the king. He was going to sort of obviously help Bnei Israel, and that's what I remembered. Sorry.
Okay. So let's identify which king and who he's going to help and why he's going to help. The Plishtim, the Philistines, are getting ready for war with Bnei Yisrael, and they have started their trek from the west coast of Israel, on the Mediterranean, up to Afek. Afek is where Be'erech, around where Petah Tikva is today. And David and his men from Ziklag, David has been living in Ziklag for about a year and a half, and he has escaped the chasing of King Saul, because Saul is hell-bent on killing him. And Saul knows that his kingship is almost over, and that this war is going to be the last war that he fights with his sons, and he and his sons will not survive the war. And he has found that information out, as Faye mentioned, by going to the sorcerer, the witch of Endor, and she has given him the future reading, that he and his King Saul and his sons will not survive this war. So David, who has very, very carefully crafted a ruse by living in the land of the Philistines, and has been gifted a city for him and his people, his men, and their wives and families in Ziklag. Ziklag is a southern city, and I'm going to show you where it is on the map, okay, so that you'll understand what we're talking about. See. Okay. Okay, can you see the map?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
so here's Ziklag. You see it's on the very southern border of Philistia, right here, and it borders the area where the Amalekites live. It borders on the Judean tribe, a southern tribe here, Hebron, Beersheba, and then it's on the western part of Israel, and you see that going further down would be Egypt. Over here is Edom, the Edomites, the Moabites. They're all in this area here. Now, what we're going to learn today is what happened when David goes to, here's a fake, when we're going to, right here, he goes with King Achish, the king of the Philistines, and they are preparing for war in the Jezreel Valley and at Mount Har Gilboa, I'm sorry, Mount Gilboa. And they're going, that's where the final battle that Saul fights will be. And they're going all the way up north. Usually the Philistines go straight into Israel, but for some reason they have decided that this is where their battle will be. And I want you to get an idea of where Ziklag is, because we're going to be talking about the Amalekites in today's chapter. So here is how close they are. All right. Now, we're going to go to the chapter. We're going to read the chapter, and we're going to find out why the king of the Philistines sends David home. He has volunteered with his men to go to war, and he has set up a ruse. Now, King Achish of the Philistines naively trusts David, but the other lords of the cities in the Plishtim area have all said that they do not want David to go into battle with them. They don't trust him, and that the king Achish should send him home. And finally, he agrees with the other Plishtim lords, and he sends David home. David is disappointed because he thought that he would fight the Philistines from within, as when they started to fight the Bnei Yisrael, he would fight from within for Bnei Yisrael, and he would try and protect Shaul and of course his friend Yonatan in this battle. But he is thwarted, he's sent home, and this was Hashem's way of really saying, you don't belong in this battle, David. This is not between you and the Plishtim and Shaul. This is a battle that God has somehow managed to, it's arranged, and this will be the destiny of Shaul, not you, David. And David is sent home, and there is a reason for him to that he was sent home, because he makes the decision to take his men on this quest with Achish, but foolishly so, leaving the city of Ziklag open and empty of men to protect the city. So let's go. We're going to go to the chapter. We're going to read the entire chapter, and then we're going to talk about it. Okay? So let's. Okay, it's chapter 30, Sefer Shmuel Aleph, and we're going to start reading. Do I have a reader? Xenia, would you read for us, please?
Sure. And it was when David and his men came to Ziklag that on the third day the Amalekites had raised the south in Ziklag, and they had smote Ziklag and burnt it with fire. And they had captured the women who were therein, but they slew no one, neither big nor small, but led them away and went on their way. And David and his men came to the city, and behold, it was burned with fire, and their wives and their sons and their daughters had been captured. And David and all the people who were with him raised their voice and wept until they had no strength to weep. And David's two wives were captured, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail, the wife of Nabal the Carmelite. And David was in dire straits, for the people spoke of stoning him, for the soul of all the people was grieved, each man concerning his sons and concerning his daughters. But David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. And David said to Abiathar the priest, the son of Avimelech, bring near to me now the ephod. And Abiathar brought the ephod near to David. And David inquired of the Lord, saying, shall I pursue this troop? Will I overtake them? And he said to him, pursue, for you shall overtake, and you shall rescue. And David went, and he and 600 men who were with him. And they came to the brook Besor, and those who were left behind stayed. And David pursued, he and 400 men, and there remained 200 men who refrained from crossing the brook Besor. And they found an Egyptian man in the field and brought him to David. And they gave him bread, and he ate, and they gave him water to drink. And they gave him a piece of a cake of figs and 2 clusters of raisins. When he had eaten, his spirit returned to him, for he had eaten no bread nor drunk any water 3 days and 3 nights. And David said to him, to whom do you belong, and from where are you? And he said, I am an Egyptian youth, a slave of the Amalekite man, and my master left me. For 3 days today I feel sick. We made a raid upon the south of the Sherethites, and upon that which belongs to Judah, and upon the south of Caleb, and we burn Ziklag with fire. And David said to him, will you bring me down to this troop? And he said, swear to me by God that you will not put me to death, and that you will not deliver me into my master's hand, and I shall bring you down to this troop. And he brought him down, and behold, they were scattered over the entire landscape, eating and drinking and dancing, because of all the great spoil which they had taken from the land of the Philistines and from the land of Judah. And David smote them from evening until evening to their morrow, and no man of them escaped except 400 young men who rode on camels and fled. Right. And David rescued all that the Amalekites had taken, and David rescued his 2 wives. And there was nothing missing to them, neither small nor great, neither sons nor daughters, nor anything which they had taken to themselves. David recovered everything. And David took all the sheep and the cattle. They led before those cattle and said, this is David's spoil. And David came to the 200 men who had refrained from going after David, and they stationed them at the brook Besor, and they came out toward David and toward the people who were with him. And David approached the people and greeted them. Excuse me. Then every evil and unscrupulous man of the men who had gone with David spoke up. It said, since they did not go with me, let us not give them of the spoil which we have rescued, but each man his wife and his children, and let them lead them away and depart. And David said, do not do so, my brethren, with that which the Lord has given us. And he guarded us and delivered the troops which came upon us into our hand. Right. And who will listen to you concerning this matter? For as the share of him who goes down into battle, so is the share of him who stays with the luggage. They shall share alike. And it was from that day on that he made it a statute and an ordinance for Israel until this day. And David came to Ziklag and sent of the spoil to the elders of Judah, to his friends, saying, here is a present for you from the spoils of the enemies of the Lord. To those who were in Bethel, and to those who were in Ramoth of the south, and to those who were in Jatir, and to those who were in Oriah, and to those who were in Sifmoth, and for those who were in Eshtemoa, and to those who were in Rachel, and to those who were in the cities of the Jerumelites, and to those who were in the cities of the Kenites, to those who were in Hormath, and to those who were in Korashan, and to those who were in Atrach, and to those who were in and to those who were in Hebron, and to all the places which David and his men had frequented.
Okay. Now, I wanted you to read the whole thing before we go through it line by line, because I wanted you to get a sense of where this was all going. So, does anyone have any comments about what we just read? Do you see what's happening here? There was a reason that God sends David back from fighting with Achish in the war, because as you saw on the map, the people of Amalek knew that they had left Ziklag wide open and available for attack. All the men had left. And so we saw how close Amalek was to Ziklag, and they were well aware that the women and children were very vulnerable. This was David's mistake. This was what he should not have done, that he left the families at the expense of his desire to fight this war. And this was a big mistake. So when God turns the Philistine lords against David to fight, there was a purpose that he needed to go home and rescue the Jewish families that had been with David since the beginning of his running away from Shaul. Now, so let's go back to the beginning here. And and let's read
Mhm.
a couple of lines and discuss them. Now, there's a lot of different references in this particular chapter to previous Torah law. There's also references to some very interesting things that we're going to discuss. And there's also a bit of poetry at the end when it describes the cities that David sends the spoils to. So, okay, Xenia, you want to just read
Mhm.
the first couple lines and
Sure,
and stop?
sure. Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, can I make a comment first?
sure.
As you were just talking about this, leaving that area open, it kind of reminded me of, what happened on October 7th, that, those areas weren't as protected as they should have been. And, yeah, it just came to mind as I was thinking about that. So, uh,
Okay.
and it was when David and his men came to Ziklag that on the third day the Amalekites had raided the south in Ziklag, and they had smote Ziklag and burned it with fire.
Okay, so David had gone, it had taken 3 days. We knew that from previous chapter that it took 3 days to get from Ziklag to Aphek with the Philistines and to get back home after that. And so David was gone enough time with his men for the Amalekites to go in to Ziklag, take the women and children, take the spoils of the city, and to go back to the Amalekite territory. And they burned the city in addition to looting it. Okay, now, okay. Linda, you want to read the next pasuk?
That's two, correct?
Yes.
And and they had captured the women who were therein, but they slew no one, neither big nor small, but led them away and went on their way.
Okay, so they took all the women, and then of course here, and they took the children as well. Go ahead.
Okay. And they captured the women who were therein, but they slew no one, and neither big nor small, but led them away and went on their way.
All right.
Do we
Okay.
know where they took them, by the way?
They took them back. They took them
Yeah.
back toward the Amalekite territory,
Okay. Mhm.
back to their home.
Okay. And
Now,
David,
now
yeah.
you remember the mentality of the Amalekites. Why are we commanded to remember Amalek? Because when Bnei Yisrael left Egypt, the first group of people that they encounter and request for water and provisions were the
Right,
Amalekites, and the Amalekites said no.
right,
They were this ruthless, merciless people who, if you had any difficulties, any situation that made you less than strong, you were left behind. They were a people that left behind stragglers and the sick, the aged. They had no use for them. They were a people of users and takers. And when Bnei Israel passed through their area, they attacked the stragglers of Bnei Israel coming out of Mitzrayim, and that's why we remember them, because of their evil, disgusting behavior toward Bnei Israel. And this is important to remember as we get further down into this particular chapter, as we read about what happens further down. So they come in, take everything, and leave. That's all they did at this point. It says they don't kill anybody. They go in, take everything, because they were takers. They survived on taking from other people, other tribes. So they were not necessarily they were not always warriors. They were takers and users. Okay. All right, continue.
And David and his men came to the city, and behold, it was burned with fire, and their wives and their sons and their daughters had been captured. And David and all the people who were with him raised their voice and wept until they had no strength to weep.
Okay, so they were so upset by what had happened because they had left everybody very vulnerable, that it took everything out of them, and they were very, very upset. And go ahead, read the next line.
And David's two wives were captured: Ahinoam the Jezreelitess,
Yeah, right.
Abigail, the wife of Nabal the Carmelite.
Okay, so they wanted to show in telling this story how serious this was, that even the king, even David, the eventual king, his two wives were taken as well. No one was spared, and they were all gone. Go ahead.
Okay, you have to move it up.
Okay.
And David was in dire straits, for the people spoke of stoning him, for the soul of all the people was grieved, each man concerning his sons and concerning his daughters. But David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. And David said to Abiathar the priest, the son of Avimelech, bring near to me now the ephod. And Abiathar brought the ephod near to David. And David inquired of the Lord, saying, shall I pursue this troop? Will I overtake them? And he said to him, pursue, for you shall overtake and you shall rescue.
Okay, so the first thing that we find that David does in this situation, even though the men are clamoring that they're ready to stone him, they're ready to kill him because the Amalekites have taken their families, they've taken everything, and they've burnt their city. And they blame David for this. Here is David who's leading these men, for quite some time, and yet the minute something terrible happens, he becomes the object of their wrath and their anger, and they're ready to kill him. They turn on him, and David, instead of uh, uh, getting angry and firing back at his men, understand how serious this is, and he reaches out to God. Now, this shows us the difference between King Shaul and the would-be King David. That David, at each time when he is confronted with a situation that is difficult and challenging, he asks to speak to God and find out whether it is a good thing or not a good thing, whether he will be safe in doing something or not. He always reaches out to God, and he asks God, what should he do? Should he pursue going after all these people, the Amalekites? And God says, yes, go and rescue everybody. You will be successful in this mission. So we know what is to come now, that David is going to go and rescue the women and children. And go ahead.
Okay. And David inquired of the Lord. Oh, wait, sorry. And David went, he and 600 men who were with him, and they came to the brook Besor, and those who were left behind stayed. And David pursued, he and 400 men, and there remained 200 men who refrained from crossing the brook Besor.
Okay, so I want to tell you about this particular incident. This is a very interesting, you think, okay, so some people went, some people stayed behind. What's the big deal? Why do we have to know this? And I quickly want to show you what we're talking about here. I want to go back to the map. Oh, I did want to go back to the map. Where did it go? The brook that they were talking about is a very small brook river that comes into the western part of Gaza, the Philistine area, and it's almost between the Amalekite area and Ziklag. It's between the two places. I somehow don't have that now. Anyway, and some of the people remember when David started out running away from Shaul, he amassed about 400 men who were like his band of merry men. I always referred to them. And they supported David, they protected David, they fought with David. And these were the core group of David's, basically of David's army. So what we have now, it says there's 600. So we see that there are more people who have joined his group, and they have grown since they coming to Ziklag, and these people, these men who are with David, these additional 200 men, were somehow maybe ostracized by the original 400 men, maybe not welcomed as much, maybe there were some issues between them, or even perhaps they were so upset from all of this that they felt they could not fight. There's no direct indication of what made this group of 200 men any different, but it says they stayed behind. Now, the 400 men go with David to fight against the Amalekites, and on the way, and they leave the 200 to stay with the supplies and perhaps the other animals, horses, donkeys, whatever, the food supplies, etc. We're not exactly sure, but that's an important thing, and I'm going to tie that into something from Tanakh Torah in a few minutes. So let's see what's happening here. Go ahead. So David, they cross the river. The 400 cross the river. The 200 stay behind. And now let's see what's going to happen.
And they found an Egyptian man in the field and brought him to David. And they gave him bread, and he ate. And they gave him water to drink. And they gave him a piece of cake of figs and 2 clusters of raisins. When he had eaten, his spirits returned to him, for he had eaten no bread nor drunk any water 3 days and 3 nights.
Okay, so they find somebody on the way to fight the Amalekites, and it happens to be an Egyptian. Okay, let's find out what this person was.
And David said to him, "To whom do you belong, and from where are you?" And he said, "I am an Egyptian youth, a slave of an Amalekite man, and my master left me, for 3 days ago. Today I feel sick."
All right, so you see, he was useless to his master, to the Amalekite master. Did not matter who he was left behind. These are the characteristics of the Amalekites. The users, they take the strong, they don't take the weak. They discard the weak. You are no longer useful. We have no use for you. Okay, so he was left to die. And what does David do? David and his men find out, yes, he is an Egyptian. It rings in David's ear that, okay, here's an Egyptian, he's sick, he's on the way to go to battle, but I'm going to extend to him help and assistance, not only because he may be useful and could help me to figure out what's happened, but because he's a human, and that's who David is. And even though it was an Egyptian, we are reminded of the Egyptian slaves and the taskmasters, and and everything, but at least David has not lost his humanity. Okay? All right. So let's continue.
We made a raid upon the south of the Cherethites, and upon that which belongs to Judah, and upon the south of Caleb, and we burned Ziklag with fire. And David, yeah.
So this Egyptian is telling David and his troops what exactly happened and what the raid was all about and who they attacked.
Mm-hmm. And David said to him, will you bring me down to this troop? And he said, swear to me by God that you will not put me to death, and that you will not deliver me into the master's hand, and I shall bring you down to this troop.
All right, so he's afraid, this Egyptian is afraid that if he's returned to his master, he'll be killed by the Amalekite. So that's why he says to him, I need you to promise me that you're not going to turn me in or turn me over to the Amalekites. And David does so. Go ahead.
And he brought him down, and behold, they were scattered. Wait, am I on the right one? 15 or 16? Okay. And he brought him down, and behold, they were scattered over the entire landscape, eating and drinking and dancing, because of all the great spoil which they had taken from the land of the Philistines and from the land of Judah.
All right, so here we know that they have attacked not only the Philistines, the southern part of the Philistine area, but the land also of the south of the Judean area of Israel. And so these two areas were the of where the Amalekites attacked. They took spoils, they took people, and they were now celebrating in whatever way Amalekites do, with all the spoils, eating, dancing, drinking, partying, whatever they do. Okay? And David sees what's going on, and let's find out what happens.
And David smote them from evening until evening to their morrow, and no man of them escaped, except 400 young men who rode on camels and fled.
All right, so why it tells us about 400 men on camels, we have no idea, except they got away. The 400 guys got away. Maybe this is significant at another time. Maybe they, there's a reason for this, but at this point, we don't know if this is meaningful or not.
Okay. And David rescued all that the Amalekites had taken, and David rescued his 2 wives.
Right.
And there was nothing missing to them, neither small nor great, neither sons nor daughters, nor anything which they had taken to themselves. David recovered everything.
All right. So why does it say nothing was taken in terms of sons or daughters? Because none of them were sacrificed.
Right.
Okay. So remember, the Amalekites were, human sacrificers. So when everyone was returned safely. We hope they were safe. We don't have all the details, but for most part, we find out that everything was still there. It was not that long amount of time. And so consequently, David and his men were successful. They fought a hard battle for 24 hours, it seemed, from nightfall to nightfall, and they were successful in getting everything back. Go ahead.
Okay. You need to move it up.
Okay, I'm trying.
And David took all the sheep and the cattle. They led before those cattle and said, this is David's spoil. And David came to the 200 men who had refrained from going after David, and they had stationed them at the brook Besor. And they came out toward David and toward the people who were with him. And David approached the people and greeted them. Then
So David comes back. Thank goodness he comes back a hero, because he's successful in battle. He's returning all of the people to their families, and he also has all the spoils from the battle that the Amalekites have taken, and he returns to the brook where the other 200 men are waiting, and they all reunite here. And it's interesting that it says that the men said, "This is David's spoils." Well, the reason they put this here is because the men now have an argument. And the argument is, go ahead and read. Let's find out what this argument is going to be.
Okay. Then every evil and unscrupulous man of the men who had gone with David spoke up and said, "Since they did not go with me, let us not give them of the spoil which we have rescued, but each man his wife and his children, and let them lead them away and depart."
Okay, so the men who went with David, the 400 men who went with David, come back to the brook. Everyone's reunited. The spoils are apparent that they're abundant, and the men who went to battle say, "No, we're not going to share these spoils with the 200
Right.
that stayed behind. They didn't go to fight for this. This is is David's spoils. You see up here, it's David's spoils. It's the conquering group that won these spoils back, and we don't have to share." So David then says to them, "Oh no, oh no, that's not what we're doing here. We needed people to stay behind to protect our supplies and our animals and whatever we needed to be watched over. These men did just as much as you did. And so the spoils are going to be divided equally." Now, in the Torah, let me see, I have it written down. Hold on. In the Torah, in Lech Lecha, when I believe that Abraham is trying to rescue his nephew Lot from the four kings, and they go to war. I don't know if you remember this, but they go to war, and Abraham is victorious, and he says to the people, as he comes home with successful after this war, "These spoils belong to God, not to me, but to God, because he made us successful in this particular battle." And this was in Lech Lecha, verse 24, where at Avraham, this is how far back the discussion of spoils goes. And this is what David is referencing here. Go ahead. It says, "And David said,"
"Okay, do not do so, my brethren, with that which the Lord has given us." And he guarded us.
That's right. This don't tell me, says David, that these men don't get the spoils, because the Lord gave it to us. Just like Abraham says when he comes back from fighting with the kings, God, these spoils are the Lord's. He rescued not only us, but he gave us the spoils, and now we share with everybody. So David is referencing the Torah when he talks to the men here on who these spoils belong to. And he actually takes a few moments of his time to get rid of the haughtiness that these 400 men had against these 200, which seems either less able to fight or weaker or not the original, whatever it was that differentiated these 200 from the 400. David brings them down a notch and says, "Oh no, these spoils belong to God." And that means we share and share alike.
You know what's also interesting, Rhonda? The very, very different between Saul and David, in the sense that Saul was guided by the people. You
Right.
know, uh, no, we'll take the sheep, we'll take the this, we'll take the that. Whereas David said, no, 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 this is Hashem's, and therefore we give it equally. So unlike Saul, David wasn't sort of turned, no, another word, by the people around him, whereas Saul was.
Exactly. David is a much stronger
Yeah, yeah,
personality. He understands the Torah. He understands God in relationship to what has to be done, and he is God's representative. See, that's the thing that Shaul really took out of the equation.
Rhonda, could I
Yeah,
just say, it's interesting because I was just thinking Shaul went to a witch
right.
for advice, whereas David always turns to Hashem.
Right.
To-
And there's a pasuk that I read last week that God says that, no necromancer,
Right.
sorcerers, or witches, etc., are allowed in Eretz Yisrael. They are forbidden, and yet Shaul requests to go to one of them. So while
Rhonda,
yes,
how
well,
does
wait a minute, while David is quoting Torah and obeying it and living by Torah, Shaul seems to feel he can go around the laws for his own use. Yes, it was.
Rhonda, how does this compare to today's problems between the Haredim and the Chalim?
Don't go there, Rita.
uh, could talk for hours on that. And
Let-
Yeah.
that's a question that I'm sorry, I'm not. I'm not. I'm not getting involved with that one. That's
it's a very tender subject, and wow, forget about
okay. So so okay. So let's continue. So what happens here? So here's David standing up for Torah values. David is standing up for the equality of everybody. We see that David extended kindness to an Egyptian. These are all qualities that the king, eventual king of Israel, has. And we have not seen these qualities in Shaul throughout his kingship. Okay, so let's continue. Where were we here?
Um,
it.
we
20.
should be 24.
Okay, so just start right here again. And
Okay.
David,
And David came to the 200 men who had refrained from going after David, and they had stationed them at the brook Besor, and they came out toward David and toward the people who were with him. And David approached the people and greeted them. Then every evil and unscrupulous man of the men who had gone with David spoke up and said, "Since they did not go with me, let us not give them of the spoil which we have rescued, but each man his wife and his children, and let them lead them away and depart." And David said, "Do not do so, my brethren, with that which the Lord has given us. He
right,
guarded us and delivered the troop which came upon us into our hand."
right.
Okay.
Okay, so that's where we left on. Now, this, go ahead and
And who will listen to you concerning this matter? For as the share of him who goes into the battle, so is the share of him who stays with the luggage. They shall share alike.
right. So David, this was important for David to clarify with the men and set them straight. And um, now we go into the last few pasukim are what we considered the poetic part of this particular chapter. And it's going to describe how David sends the spoils to the Bnei Israel in Judea and to the cities that he feels the elders are. And don't forget, what tribe is David from?
Benjamin?
It's from Judah.
Right.
It's from
So
the tribe of Judah.
so he's returning the spoils back to those people, his brethren. And as you saw on the map, Judea was very close to Ziklag, so the two were the areas that were raided, and now David is sending it back, and he's making sure that they know that this is from the David's battle with the Amalekites. Okay. And what do you think David is doing by returning these spoils to his tribe?
Compensation.
Mhm.
Compensation.
Okay, he's compensating for
Mhm.
what?
Well,
the-
it's his brethren. I mean, it's his family. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe they were loyal to him or something. I don't know.
Not so.
Okay.
What is he doing here?
He's
Maybe
building a
he's letting him,
political.
Wait,
Oh,
what? So,
go ahead.
maybe he's letting them know that he's still alive.
Okay. Why? What is that?
Because I would imagine that if he was with the Philistines, maybe a lot of the people thought he was dead.
Possibly. Okay. Okay. Anything else?
Could Saul have been sort of prejudiced against the tribe of Yehuda, Rhonda,
Well,
because it was
of
David's tribe? I mean, I don't
yeah,
know. I'm just asking.
yeah, you think? Because that's he certainly does know that the next king is going to be from the tribe of Judah, and it's going to be David. He knows that now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what is David doing? He is let's read the rest of this straight through,
Okay.
and you'll
Mhm.
see what hopefully it'll become clear to you. Go
Okay.
ahead.
All right. So well, I was just going to make another comment, was
Okay.
that to me, he was building a political base for the
Absolutely.
future.
Absolutely.
Oh, very good.
He's
Right.
going to be king very soon. What did
Mhm.
we learn? Shaul is not surviving the war.
Mhm. Okay.
Achish is on the way to fight Bnei Yisrael, as at the same time that David is now protecting his families and the families of Ziklag. This is
Mhm.
going on simultaneously. The
Wow.
Philistines are on their way to war with Bnei Yisrael, and Bnei Yisrael in Ziklag, with under the leadership of David, is bringing back his family and all the families of these men. So these things are happening simultaneously. We're not on a continuum here where one thing happens and another thing another thing. All of this is fluid and it's happening together. So don't forget, David knows soon there's going to be a change in kingship, and it's going to be him. And he better let the people know back in Judah, where he's from, that he's alive and well, and he's
That's
thinking
very
of
good.
them. He's thinking
Mhm.
of them to send back what was theirs, because they were also attacked by the Amalekites, and to make the connection of who he is and who he will be. So let's go ahead.
So am I on 25? I
Yeah.
think. Yeah. And it was from that day on that he made it a statute and an ordinance for Israel until this day.
Okay. So that's what we were referring to.
Mhm.
That spoils belong to the Lord. And
Mhm.
every time David goes out, those spoils will be equally divided, or they will be given to God.
Mhm. And David said, and David came to Ziklag and sent of the spoil to the elders of Judah, to his friends, saying, here is a present for you from the spoils of the enemies of the Lord. to those who were in Bethel, and to those who were in Ramoth of the south, and to those who were in Jatir, to those who were in Aurora, and to those who were in Siphoth, and for those who were in Eshtemoa, and to those who were in Rachel, and to those who were in the cities of Jerahmeelites, and to those who were in the cities of Kenites, and to those who were in Hormah, and to those who were in Korashan, and to those who were in Ach, and to those who were in Hebron, and to all the places which David and his men had frequented.
Okay, so, and the last city that they mention in this poetic, and to the city, this city,
Hebron.
that
Hebron.
city, and that city, and this city, and the last city is
Hebron.
Hebron, where David will emerge as king. Don't forget, it's been almost 7 years since David has been anointed king. It takes that amount of time for all these things to have happened throughout the relationship with Shaul, and Shaul's appointing him at David as general of his army, and the pursuit one time after another, the difficulties that David has experienced, the killing of the priests of Nov by Shaul. All of this is coming to a final conclusion. We see, we have been given a picture from the necromancer, the witch in Endor that Shaul has that went to, and we know that sooner than later, that David is going to be the king. And so I think that these are kind of some of the final things that we learn about David, that he's fair, that he's honest, that he reaches out to God, he knows Torah, and that these are qualities that will distinguish him as the king of Bnei Israel and ruler of Israel. And he will be Chai V'Kayam. He will be the special king for all time in Israel. And I think that we are given those qualities here in this chapter. Does anyone have any comments or anything that they want to say, except about Haredim? So, I mean, do you see how all of his actions start? If we take a look at the last 4 or 5 chapters, everything is coming together to create this experiential relationship with David and God and the people, and it shows all of David's qualities. And even when David is shown to be wrong in making a decision to go fight with the Philistines as opposed to saving and staying with his people, he accepts that. He asks God what he should do. He's not angry at God. He isn't forced to do something by the people. He stays on course, and that is what makes him the king that we all know him to be.
It's very humble when you have such absolute power that obviously the kings and those, not humble, it's very difficult, sorry, when you have such absolute power that those kings used to have, not to become like Paro was, so self-absorbed and so arrogant that you sort of lose sight. And I think that is one thing that is very characteristic of David HaMelech. He never lost sight of who he was and Hashem being with him all the time. Whereas I think, other kings obviously and, sort of become so self-absorbed that like Machiavelli said, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah. Well, okay, that is That is I would say a semi-accurate statement. Faye, you're right in many ways. David has his moments,
Yeah,
but
oh yeah, they're human.
where he kind of slips up. We're gonna
Yeah,
learn. We're gonna learn about those mistakes, but
yeah,
we find that he always returns to the path of God.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Very, very hard to be that way. And that's
Right,
why he was just so, well, he's eternal. Because of
right,
that,
right,
yeah.
right,
Anyway.
right. Okay. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share? No? Okay. So let's stop recording.